Hey guys, it's Jordan here from SwitchWatch. How are you doing today? Today's review is of Umihara Kawase Fresh, another import from Japan. We're going to see how this one is and if it's worth an import or not. Umihara Kawase is a very niche franchise with releases so intermittent that it's actually quite refreshing. Rather than having yearly sequels draining enthusiasm dry, Umihara Kawase has been happy to lay dormant for half a decade before finding a new release. Indeed, the last game in the series was originally released in 2013, Sayonara Umihara Kawase on 3DS, but was ported out over the next couple of years to other consoles. If you know even just the basics of Japanese, you'll know that sayonara means goodbye or farewell, but here we are 5 years later with a sequel, Those Liars. Fresh is the name of the game, and for the handful of fans out there, it will be a very familiar feeling. I'm new to this series, so let's find out what I think of it. A long-running theme of these games is that our titular protagonist Umihara Kawase has a recurring dream of a very special place. These days she's a wandering chef going from place to place until one day she stumbles upon that very location but in the flesh. Entering the Honey I'm Home restaurant, she likes it so much that she decides to stay a while and help out. That's the introductory premise. The story sections are told via static art cutscenes with character art going back and forth in conversation. Let's just say that the story is hardly at the forefront of this entry, although I'm sure long-time fans of the previous games will be interested in some of the aspects of what it has to offer, even if it's borderline vapid at times. The gameplay for Umihara Kawase is a side-scrolling 2.5D platformer in a free-roaming large level. It's all one large interconnected level that expands as you progress in the game. The game is segregated into missions which go along with the story. Most of the early ones act as tutorials, but which steadily increase and introduce your small handful of abilities. Most missions will require you to arrive at a certain location or collect special ingredients for someone, basic stuff, but it's the journey that's important here. Your little Kawase is feeble in herself, she can't jump particularly high or move very fast, but she has one weapon up her sleeve, her trusty fishing line and lure. This is the main gimmick of the game and the most iconic things about the series. Kawase can throw her fishing line out to hook on pretty much everything. Needless to say, this leaves much room for some inventive platforming parts. Since all level layouts are randomly hovering islands, getting between them needs some heavy use of your line. You can throw it forward as well as in multiple directions using all of the shoulder buttons to give you lots of versatility. After a few stages you'll be swinging across gaps, reeling yourself up against ledges and abseiling yourself to your target. Then once you get a little more confident, you'll be catapulting yourself up high and building up so much kinetic energy you can fly across almost anything. It's fun, made all the better thanks to the overzealous physics of the fishing line. It may look simple and basic, but it's deceptive thanks to the need to master it, which really isn't easy. In fact, with your first few levels, you'll be forgiven for thinking that it's unwieldy nonsense. It takes time to get used to, and you'll be struggling to see its potential, but once it clicks, it really clicks. There's so much potential here, and it can be a very tough game at times. As the stage is pretty open with multiple ways to get to your target, you can find some excellent ways to be inventive to get where you want to in style. The game does do a good job of guiding you though, showing you the ideal path to take for those who are less adventurous. One of the other mechanics is the ingredients and cooking, which is pretty self-explanatory. If you reel in enemies or other ingredients laying around, you can put them in your magical backpack and use them to cook up a meal which can give you a special bonus, as well as restore your health. As you play through stages, you'll acquire more and more recipes to cook from the menu, which can give you boosts like not being stunned from hits, no knockback, and my personal favourite, giving you a longer fishing line. You'll need to do this fairly often since you do have a rather annoying hunger meter steadily decreasing as time goes on. In the beginning stages you won't need to worry since levels can be completed in mere seconds, although once you're into the 20s and later you'll be spending a good few minutes for the most part, and those occasionally sticky segments can go on for quite some time, so you'll always be needing those meals to keep you topped up. What I do advise new players to do is take full advantage of the camping system, especially once you're past the 20 stage mark. You'll be tasked with going further and further and higher, and one mistake will either kill you or send you so far back down that you'll want to cry after ascending so far. The camping system basically lets you set a checkpoint at specific places, as long as you have the gear for it, saving you a lot of frustration. You can only set one at a time though, and gear isn't so common, so you do need to be wise about them. With dozens and dozens of levels, there's a fair bit of content, although many levels can be completed quickly if you're rushing through them, especially early on. You'll be completing missions in half a minute at times if you just charge to the end. One of my biggest gripes is the lack of incentive to not blast through a level, cheesing your way to the goal. I always felt like I was wasting my time taking down enemies or exploring levels. Sure, you can get ingredients, but that wasn't enough for me as you can just buy them in the shop anyways. There are some secret items hidden away, but they are often so far off the normal path you wouldn't find them anyways unless you scour every inch, which you won't do in a normal casual playstyle. There is a time attack mode, which is where you'll find the most replay value here. After you've completed a level, you'll be able to play them in time trial mode, trying to complete them in the fastest time possible. Sadly, there's no goal the game has in mind that you have to beat, it's just whatever you do. This feels a little empty and something the developers could easily have made more interesting with a target time. I think there's enough content here. You have the challenge quests, unlockable playable characters to keep you occupied after completing all of the missions. It's a shame it doesn't become something much more than what it starts off as it kind of feels like you're doing the same thing all the way through, only the occasional boss battle to shake things up in a more interesting way. Visually, the game is probably very divisive. These games have always had a more cutesy style, but Fresh takes it to another level, perhaps too much for my liking. They're supposed to be fun, friendly games, but the art style and visual fidelity don't do it any favours in my opinion. It's just too far. It's completely harmless of course, but you can't help wanting a better art style, something less cheap looking. If the art style replicated that of the promotional art and box art, that would have been awesome. Thankfully, of course, games are usually all about the gameplay, which is what pulled me through this game. Any less and the art style would have put me off completely. And I don't blame you if you don't want to play this because it looks like this. Maybe I'm being overly harsh. I do like the way the camera angles change or move around as you ascend or descend ladders. It gives the game an almost dioramic feel, which is a nice touch. Performance wise, the game is very solid. It looks and plays well both docked and handheld mode, and if you know me by now, you'll know that I'm going to say it looks much more suited to handheld play, especially with the cutesy blocky graphics which don't blow up well on a big TV. Audio wise, you've got a soundtrack that is pretty decent, although entirely unmemorable. Tunes are reused over and over again, so there's not a whole lot of variety on offer, which is a shame because I oddly like the dainty cheeriness to it. If I had to describe it, the level music kind of feels like a Sonic soundtrack, but transformed into a convenience store type inoffensiveness. It's fine, but I would have liked more. Another disappointment is the lack of voice acting. I wouldn't have expected any English voices here, but even simple games like these tend to have some Japanese voice acting, whether fully voiced or intermittently. I just don't like the awkward silence here. It's not as though it's a massive JRPG or anything. On the Japanese eShop, Umihara Kawase Fresh is coming in at 6,264 yen, which is around $56 in the US and €49 and 42 pounds-ish. Is that good value? Well, I think most of you will agree it's very overpriced, despite there being a decent amount of content. I don't think the production gone into this is enough to warrant such a high price, no matter how niche it is. It's not good value. I'm not entirely sure what the price will be when it does release in the West under Nicholas's publication. I'm led to believe it will be around $30, but I can't but hope that they notch it down to what it should be, which is under $20. I'm not saying it's not fun, because it is fun, but there's no way it should be a near AAA release price. I'd have been happy if I'd have paid £15 for it. If you are interested in playing this niche game but don't fancy blowing your money on a digital release, then you can purchase a physical release. I believe the Western release will be in the summertime, but if you can't wait until then you can import a Japanese version which includes English upon boot up. At least you'll be able to get your money back if you decide to sell it on. I'll pop a link below to the Japanese version which you can import, also the American version if you want to pre-order that too. Also some eShop credit if you decide you want to download it from the Japanese eShop right now. These are affiliate links, so we'll get a small cut at no extra cost to you guys. Every purchase helps support the SwitchWatch team very, very much, so do consider that. Before we get into my final thoughts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you are new here. We do Switch reviews, gameplays, and features, as well as a healthy selection of import reviews like this one. If you're a regular, then continue to show your awesome support by liking and leaving a comment about what you think of Umihara Kawase Fresh. Do you think you'll import this one, or perhaps wait for the Western release? Overall, despite its childish looks and unappealing visuals and presentation, there's plenty of fun to be had in Umihara Kawase Fresh. I love the physics-based platforming of using your fishing line, bouncing around, hooking enemies and so on. It's fun and can be very challenging to get a hang of. It's just a pity that the goals of the game are a little mundane. Also, the Japanese price is pretty unacceptable, I think. It should have been around $20 at the most. If I was completely ignoring the price, which many people think critics should, then I'd be fairly positive about this release, maybe a 7 out of 10. But here at SwitchWatch, it's a big part of our scoring system, and thinking about the price, it's just unacceptable. So, I would give Umihara Kawase Fresh a 6 out of 10. If you're looking for another game to import from the East, then consider checking out some of these reviews. Super Robot Wars T is a must-have. Dead or Alive for the pervs out there. And if you're a physical collector like me, then how about Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon, or the better physical release in Japan of Final Fantasy X and 10 Part 2. I'll see you guys over there. Take care.